It was January 11th, 2019. Gigi Wu hit the trail for a 2-week trek through Yushan National Park in central Taiwan. Little did this social media icon know that it would be her horrifying last trip. After traveling to the location using 3 trains and a bus, she spent a night in a budget-friendly hotel favored by hikers. Instead of the regular safety equipment that hikers typically pack, Gigi's pack held her photo equipment, plus a variety of food to keep her going during her adventure. Gigi planned to start on a familiar path known as the Batongguan Historic Trail, but she had no idea what was about to happen to her during her 2-week adventure. In today's episode, we're going to dive into some of the most controversial and horrifying disasters that happened to 4 different women while hiking solo. What exactly happened to these experienced hikers? Would these tragic stories have different endings if they weren't alone? As always, viewer discretion is advised. Hiking is a great way to connect with nature, and Gigi from Taiwan took it to another level by hiking in bikinis. She was known for climbing some of Taiwan's highest and most difficult peaks. What started as a UN dare after losing a bet soon became her trademark. While she gained fans for her boldness and love for adventure, her unique approach sparked controversy, with critics arguing that hiking in a bikini was risky and irresponsible, especially in cold weather conditions. It was also said that Gigi would change into a bikini at the summit and share her photos online. Despite the criticism, Gigi remained passionate about her hiking and continued to pursue her love of the mountains. She saw her bikini as a symbol of freedom and joy after achieving something difficult, but her story took a tragic turn. On January 11th, 2019, Gigi set out for another hike in Taiwan's Yushan National Park. This wasn't just some easy stroll. She was going to attempt a solo climb of a very remote and difficult section of the park. To give you an idea, the park is home to some of the highest peaks in Taiwan, and the terrain is steep, rugged, and unpredictable. To make matters worse, a source claimed that Gigi deviated without an official permit onto an unsanctioned and dangerous trail that neither she nor her hiking buddies had ever attempted. Before setting off again, Gigi consulted a weather reporter who informed her that the skies would be clear on the 18th and the 19th, which looked to be the 2 most difficult days of her journey. On the first of those days, right before she planned to split off onto the regular trail, descending the northwest face of Jupan Mountain, a 10,223-foot peak, she posted a picture on Facebook, a blanket of clouds captioned "Celebrating Today." On the 19th, while traversing the remote Batongguan Historic Trail, and after she had reached an altitude of 8,000 feet and planned to descend to 5,000 feet, she slipped and fell into a 65-foot deep ravine. Gigi was severely injured and unable to move. She gathered some of her strength and used her satellite phone to call a friend, alerting him of her situation and location. The rescue efforts faced significant delays. After sending a distress message, her location was hard to pinpoint. She was hiking solo, which complicated the situation. When her friends reported her missing, it took time for authorities to launch a search. The weather on that day played a disastrous role too. The search team could not enter the area due to the heavy snow and fierce wind. Unfortunately, the rough terrain and lack of GPS tracking meant rescuers had to rely on outdated maps and assumptions about where she might be. They kept searching for 2 long days, and on the morning of January 21st, they found her. Gigi was lying on her back with her eyes closed and frozen blood particles around her mouth. No breath, no pulse, skin cold to the touch. They found her backpack nearby, with a satellite phone and cell phone on her right side, and a flashlight tied to her left wrist. All these details together showed that Gigi had died from hypothermia. And this is where her story becomes every hiker's worst nightmare. Hypothermia is something that can sneak up on you when you're in the mountains, especially in the winter. It happens when your body loses heat faster than it can produce it, and before you know it, you lose coordination. You can't think straight, and eventually, you lose consciousness. For Gigi, being stuck in that ravine, injured and alone, in freezing temperatures, was the stuff of hiking nightmares. No one imagines going out for an adventure and not making it home. So why is this story so controversial? Well, it comes back to the bikini thing. After Gigi's death, the media exploded with headlines about the bikini climber, and many people immediately questioned her choices. Some blamed her for being careless, assuming that her bikini obsession somehow contributed to her fall or her inability to survive. Others jumped to conclusions without really understanding the full picture, making her story more about her clothing than the tragedy itself. But here's the thing. Gigi wasn't wearing a bikini when she fell. She was in proper hiking gear, and it wasn't her outfit that led to her death. The fact is, hiking is dangerous no matter how experienced you are, and accidents can happen to anyone. But because of her bikini photos, her story got twisted into something sensational, and the controversy overshadowed the real issue: the dangers of hiking alone in remote areas, where help might not arrive in time if something goes wrong. Gigi's story has some elements of surprise and doubt. First, there's the fact that she was hiking alone in one of Taiwan's most difficult parks, a place where hikers know to be extra cautious. Then there's the bikini angle, which turned a personal tragedy into a media circus. And finally, the heartbreaking fact that Gigi was so close to rescue but not close enough. You see, she managed to call for help, explaining her injury and providing her location, but the bad weather and the steep terrain made things worse. The helicopters couldn't reach her immediately, forcing crews to attempt the dangerous journey on foot. By the time they arrived over 40 hours later, hypothermia had the last word. Her story is a reminder that no matter how prepared you are, the mountains don't care. They can be beautiful and deadly all at once. Now, as wild as Gigi's story is, it's not the only one that's left people questioning how things went so wrong. Geraldine Largay is a retired nurse who set out to hike the Appalachian Trail, but what happened to her is something that still haunts hikers to this day. Geraldine, or Jerry as her friends called her, had always loved the outdoors. Born and raised in Tennessee, she had a pretty typical life. She worked as a nurse for years. She had a husband and a daughter. Hiking wasn't something she did professionally, but she had a passion for it even in her 60s, and she always hiked with her friend Jane Lee. Jerry and Jane Lee met in 2011 and quickly bonded over their shared passion for hiking. As they spent more time together on the trails, their friendship grew stronger. They not only covered miles but also composed haikus, which is a short form of poetry that originated in Japan. That turned their hikes into a creative and joyful experience that captured their sense of humor as well. Both women were in their 60s and made a great hiking team. Jane, the more confident navigator, complemented Jerry's enthusiasm, resilience, and sometimes disorientation. They tackled many hikes and covered miles together. Like many who dream of adventure in retirement, Jerry set her sights on the Appalachian Trail, or the AT, as hikers call it. And like many other hikers who were granted nicknames, Jerry had her own, Inchworm. I know that sounds funny. She got the nickname due to how slowly she hiked. Now you get it. For those who don't know, the Appalachian Trail is no joke. It stretches over 2,000 miles, from Georgia to Maine, and it takes serious dedication to complete. Most people who attempt it do so in sections, while some try to do it all in one go, what's known as a through hike. Jerry decided she would take on the challenge, bit by bit, as her nickname suggested. Although Jerry wasn't some expert hiker, she wasn't a newbie either. She had done several sections of the trail before and was well prepared for this trip. She had all the right gear, maps, and even a cell phone for emergencies. But here's where the story takes a turn that no one expected. In July of 2013, Jerry and Jane were hiking a particularly remote stretch of the trail in Maine. It's known for being one of the more difficult sections because of the rough terrain and isolation. After a long hike, Jane had to leave the trail briefly for a family emergency. So Jerry decided to continue hiking alone, planning to meet up with her friend a little further along the trail. However, Jane grew concerned about Jerry, who often got lost easily. Jerry left a shelter near Poplar Ridge heading north, and Jane's fear came to life. At some point during that day, Jerry wandered off the trail. Maybe she got turned around while taking a bathroom break, or maybe she lost her way in the dense Maine forest. Whatever happened, Jerry became disoriented. That's where things got really terrifying. Imagine hiking in the wilderness, completely alone, thinking you know where you're going, only to realize that you're lost. And not just, oh, I missed a turn lost, but truly deeply lost. You look around, and it all looks the same. The trees look like copy-pasted versions of each other. You're surrounded by huge trees that make the day look like the night. And of course, you have no idea how to get back because you have no idea where you came from. This was her first hike without her pal. For Jerry, this was her worst nightmare come true. Hours turned into days, and concern turned into panic. Jerry tried to use her cell phone to call for help, but the area had no service. She did everything she could to survive. She stayed put, built a small campsite, and controlled her food. She even sent out text messages to her husband, hoping they'd somehow get through. One of them read, "In some trouble. Got off the trail to go to the bathroom. Now lost. Can you call the Appalachian Mountain Club to see if a trail maintainer can help me? Somewhere north of Woods Road. XOXO." But that message, like all the others, never went through. Now, this is where the controversy comes in. Jerry's family reported her missing when she didn't show up at the meeting point, and a massive search and rescue operation was launched. Dozens of volunteers, helicopters, dogs, all out there looking for her. But for 2 weeks they found nothing. And here's the thing. Jerry was only a couple of miles off the trail. It wasn't like she had wandered hundreds of miles into the wilderness. She was close, but in a dense forest like that, close can feel 1,000,000 miles away. People started asking, why didn't they find her sooner? Was the search not thorough enough? How could someone disappear so completely in such a well-traveled area? These are the questions that still hang over her case. The truth is, despite all the efforts, the searchers simply didn't go far enough into the area where she had set up camp. They were so close, but they missed her. But here's the part that gives me chills. In 2015, a U.S. Navy forester discovered her remains just a short distance from the trail. They found her in the very area searchers had combed over multiple times. Along with her body, they found her journal, where she had kept a record of her days in the woods. Her last entry was heartbreaking. She had survived for 26 days, waiting for a rescue that never came. That means that for over 2 years, no one knew what had happened to Jerry. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Do you agree that the fact she was lost in such a well-known section of the trail is almost unbelievable and extremely heartbreaking? She was experienced, she had maps, and she wasn't far from the trail. How could this have happened? Then there's the question of the rescue efforts. They were massive, yet somehow they missed her. It makes you wonder, how many other hikers might be out there, lost and waiting, just beyond the reach of search teams? Jerry's death sparked a lot of debates about safety on the Appalachian Trail. Some said she shouldn't have been hiking alone, that it was too risky at her age. Others criticized the search teams for not being thorough enough. And of course, there's the bigger issue of technology. Why wasn't there better cell service in such a popular hiking area? Could a satellite phone or personal locator beacon have saved her? The truth is that Jerry's story raised more questions than answers. The next story is the response to the theory that suggested that age was the most important factor in Jerry's case. In April 2014, Chris Kramers and Lisanne Froon embarked on an adventure that would change everything. Chris Kramers was a 21-year-old Dutch student known for her artistic spirit and passion for social causes. Growing up in Amersfoort, Utrecht, Netherlands, Chris was a thoughtful and empathetic individual, dedicated to making a positive difference in the world. After completing her degree in cultural social education, she was eager to broaden her horizons, immerse herself in new cultures, and contribute to social development. This desire for adventure and purpose led her to plan a trip to Panama, where she and her close friend Lisanne Froon would explore, learn Spanish, and volunteer with local children. For Chris, the trip was not just about travel, but about combining her love for humanity and adventure. Lisanne Froon, 22, shared Chris's enthusiasm for travel and personal growth, making them ideal companions on this journey. Also from Amersfoort, Lisanne had recently graduated with a degree in applied psychology and was driven by a love for adventure and the outdoors. Energetic and determined, she embraced challenges, whether hiking in nature or pushing herself to new experiences. Lisanne saw the Panama trip as an opportunity for self-discovery and a way to embrace the beauty of the world alongside her close friend, Chris. Together, they set out on what was meant to be a life-changing adventure, one filled with excitement, learning, and purpose. Only a few weeks before leaving for Panama, Lisanne had moved in with Chris in a dorm room in Amersfoort and worked together at a cafe restaurant called Inden Klein and Hap. They saved money for 6 months and planned to go to Panama together on a special vacation. Chris and Lisanne arrived in Panama on March 15, 2014. They toured the country for 2 weeks before arriving in Boquete to live with a local family for a month while volunteering with children. They had a blast emerging with the culture and the people. They had their routine of working, volunteering, going out to have brunches with their friends, going on hikes, and just living the best days of their lives. One of those hikes was near the clouded area that surrounded the Baru volcano, on the El Pianista trail, which wasn't far from Boquete. The trail was in a stunning area, known for its lush rainforests and towering mountains. They went along with the dog of their host. They were eager to explore and excited about what they would discover, but as they went deeper into the jungle, things took a turn. On the night of the hike, April 1st, the host family noticed something was wrong. Their dog had returned, safe and sound alone, without Chris and Lisanne. The host family searched the area around their home, but decided to wait until morning to continue the search properly. The next morning, the women missed an appointment with a local tour guide who was supposed to take them on a private walking tour of Boquete, which prompted the host family to alert authorities. The host family and the villagers searched the forest and lightly wooded areas, but their search brought no positive outcome. The host family alerted Chris and Lisanne's parents of the current situation of their children. Before their parents left for Panama, they reported the case to the Dutch authority, who promised to provide them with adequate security support. And on April 6th, their parents arrived in Panama along with Dutch police, dog units, and detectives from the Netherlands to conduct a full-scale search of the forests for 10 days. They were accompanied by local police from Panama who were ready to contribute with their maximum assistance. The parents weren't just satisfied by the two governments helping them, they went further and offered a $30,000 reward for any information leading to their daughters. And any parent would have done the same. After a few days, a breakthrough happened. On April 8, 2014, searchers found a backpack along the trail that had Lisanne's camera and some of their belongings. This was the first real sign they had. Hope surged as they learned that the women were still out there somewhere. But with that hope came a chilling reality. When authorities reviewed the photos on Lisanne's camera, they discovered images that revealed the reality of their situation. The early images depict joy, capturing the beauty of their hike. But then came the chilling photos, images of them looking frightened, illuminated by a flashlight in the darkness. It's enough to send shivers down your spine, right? What had they experienced during those days lost in the wilderness? The thought alone can make anyone feel uneasy. As the search continued, authorities faced challenges due to the dense jungle terrain. It's one thing to read about these challenges, but can you imagine navigating through thick underbrush, steep hills, and unpredictable weather? The search teams were doing everything they could, but the jungle was relentless. The days turned into weeks, and just when it seemed like the search was reaching a dead end, the story took another heartbreaking turn. By June 2014, some of their remains were discovered in a remote area of the jungle. The news shattered their families and friends, who had been holding on to hope for their safe return. This is where the story takes a chilling turn. The conditions surrounding their deaths remain unclear, leaving behind a haze of confusion and speculation. Some reports suggested that they may have succumbed to the elements, while others proposed that foul play could have been involved. The fact that their remains were found scattered in the wilderness, without a clear cause of death, only deepened the mystery. What makes Chris and Lisanne's story even more troubling are the unanswered questions surrounding their disappearance. Why did they get lost in the first place? Was there a reason they couldn't find their way back? Did they have any encounters with others during their hike that could explain their tragic fate? If only animals could speak. The dog that followed these two friends might have shed more light on their exact whereabouts. The impact of Chris and Lisanne's disappearance on the hiking community has been profound. Many hikers have since shared their experiences of hiking alone or in remote areas, raising awareness about the importance of safety precautions. The story of Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon serves as a reminder of both the joys and risks of adventure. Yet, their tragic disappearance underscores the importance of being prepared, staying cautious, and respecting the dangers of the wilderness. This last story is of a mother and daughter hike that hiked on the same mountain range as Jerry. Susan Clements, a 53-year-old mother of three, set out on a hike with her 20-year-old daughter on Tuesday, September 25, 2018. They were hiking near Clingman's Dome in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, an area known for its breathtaking views, rugged terrain, and popularity with hikers from all over the country. Clingman's Dome, the highest point in the park, rises to an elevation of 6,643 feet and draws countless visitors who want to experience the spectacular vistas of the Appalachian Mountains. Susan was no stranger to the outdoors. She enjoyed the serenity and challenge that hiking offered, making this hike just another chance to bond with her daughter and enjoy the natural beauty of the area. Susan was an experienced hiker, comfortable navigating the trails of the Smokies. So, here's a quick crash course on this mountain range. The Great Smoky Mountains are a mountain range rising along the Tennessee-North Carolina border in the southeastern United States. They are a sub-range of the Appalachian Mountains, consisting of many trails. Susan and her daughter set their eyes on the Forney Ridge Trail, which leads from Clingman's Dome to Andrews Bald. It is a well-trodden trail, about 1.8 miles long, and a popular destination for its wide-open meadow with panoramic views. As the day progressed, Susan and her daughter decided to split up briefly. Susan agreed to meet her daughter back at the parking lot, a mere quarter-mile away. It was a short distance, and there was no reason to think anything would go wrong. But when her daughter arrived at the agreed-upon meeting point, Susan wasn't there. It happens, right? It's not always guaranteed that hikers reach right on time. But as the minutes ticked by and there was no sign of Susan, Susan's daughter quickly reported her missing to park officials. What followed was one of the largest search efforts in the history of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Over the next week, more than 125 search and rescue personnel, including park rangers, volunteers, K-9 units, and even helicopters with infrared technology, scoured the area in search of Susan. Drones were deployed to cover the rugged, densely forested terrain, while teams on foot meticulously combed the trails and off-trail areas. The Great Smoky Mountains, while beautiful, are also incredibly challenging. The dense forest canopy, steep ridges, and deep ravines create a landscape where it is easy to become disoriented. Even experienced hikers can quickly find themselves off course. The terrain, coupled with rapidly changing weather conditions, made the search all the more difficult. At night, temperatures in the higher elevations can plummet, and park officials knew that Susan's survival depended on finding her before the cold took its toll. For days, Susan's family and friends held out hope, clinging to the possibility that she had found shelter and was waiting to be rescued. The search teams worked tirelessly, expanding their efforts to cover miles of trails and off-trail areas around Clingman's Dome and Andrews Bald. Volunteers from surrounding areas joined the effort, determined to help bring Susan home. However, as the days passed without any trace of her, hope began to fade. The rugged landscape and the sheer vastness of the area made it seem as though Susan had vanished into thin air. Despite the best efforts of search and rescue teams, they couldn't find any sign of her. The Park Service emphasized that the terrain around Clingman's Dome while heavily trafficked in places, becomes extremely treacherous once hikers leave the marked trails. With steep drop-offs, thick underbrush, and no clear landmarks, it's easy to lose one's way, especially if disoriented by fatigue or hypothermia. Finally, on October 2nd, 2018, after 7 long days of searching, Susan's body was found. Her remains were discovered in a remote area about 2 miles west of the Clingmans Dome parking lot, down a steep and densely vegetated ravine known as the Huggins Creek Drainage. This location was far from the main trails, in an area so overgrown that searchers struggled to enter it earlier. An autopsy revealed that Susan had died of hypothermia, just like Gigi's case we mentioned earlier. As the temperature dropped and night fell, her body would have gradually surrendered to the cold. Park officials concluded that Susan had likely become disoriented after leaving the Forney Ridge Trail and had wandered into the remote, rugged terrain where she was eventually found. The area she was in was difficult to access, and it's believed that the combination of cold temperatures and the challenging terrain led to her tragic death. Susan was not the first person to disappear or die in this vast and often unforgiving wilderness. Her story highlighted the dangers that any hiker can face, particularly in areas like Clingmans Dome, where the weather can change rapidly and trails can become disorienting. The fact that she had been so close to the parking lot was a chilling reminder of how quickly things can go wrong in the wilderness. Her case also reignited discussions about the importance of hiking safety. For many hikers, Susan's story was a wake-up call about the necessity of carrying proper equipment, even on short hikes. Emergency supplies like a map, compass, GPS device, extra layers, and a flashlight can make all the difference when things go wrong. Every hike is a life or death decision. In the months and years following Susan's death, her memory has been honored by those who continue to hike the Great Smoky Mountains. Her tragic end underscores the beauty and danger that coexist in the wild. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay bold and live brave.